I've been a family law attorney for 15 years, and I thought I'd seen it all. Infidelity, secret bank accounts, custody disputes that erupted into chaos. None of it fazed me anymore. But then Cassandra Langley walked into my office on a stormy Tuesday morning, and everything I believed about human behavior was turned upside down. She exuded wealth. A luxury purse, sleek blonde hair, and subtle jewelry that screamed understated opulence. Her husband, Victor, ran a network of upscale bistros across the region. On the surface, this seemed like a typical high-stakes divorce. Cassandra wanted an even split of their assets. I suspected Victor was concealing wealth, standard tactic. "I need to end my marriage," she said, her voice calm but her fingers quivering as she signed the retainer. "What's the basis?" I asked, opening a new document on my laptop. "Irreconcilable differences," she answered too fast. My instincts, honed over years, told me she was hiding something significant. "Mrs. Langley, I need complete transparency," I said. "Is there anything about your marriage, your husband, or your circumstances that could complicate this? Abuse, affairs, illegal activities?" She stared at her lap for a long moment. When she looked up, her polished facade cracked. "There's something I have to tell you, but it might make you refuse my case." My gut clenched. When clients say that, they're usually right. "I can't represent you effectively without the full truth," I said softly. She took a trembling breath. "6 months ago, I uncovered something about Victor that showed me the man I married isn't real." I waited, knowing silence often draws out more than questions. I thought he was staying late at the bistro, handling inventory or meeting vendors until 2 or 3 a.m. I suspected he was cheating, so I hired a private investigator. She pulled a thick envelope from her bag, her hands unsteady. "What did they find?" I asked. "No affair," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "He's running a different kind of operation out of the bistro's basement." She handed me the envelope. As I opened it, my blood ran cold. The photos showed the basement of what I assumed was one of Victor's bistros, transformed into something far beyond my 15 years of legal experience. "Mrs. Langley," I said carefully, "you need to take this to the authorities immediately." "I can't," she said, tears streaming down her face. "You don't understand. I'm not just his wife. I'm not just a victim who stumbled onto this." My hands froze on the photos. "What do you mean?" She met my gaze, and the look in her eyes made me want to end the meeting right there. "I've been involved for 3 years," she said. "I've been managing the books, handling the clients. I thought it was just money laundering through the bistros." The room spun. "But it's so much worse, and now I want out. But Victor says if I try to leave, he'll ensure I take the fall with him. He has proof that makes me look like the ringleader." I set the photos down, my hands shaking. "Mrs. Langley, you need a criminal defense attorney, not a divorce lawyer." "Please," she whispered, "just listen. There's more, something that changes everything." I should have ended the consultation then, referred her to criminal counsel, and walked away. But her desperation, her fear, held me in place. "I'm listening." She pulled a USB drive from her purse. 3 weeks ago, I was searching Victor's computer for financial records to prepare for the divorce. That's when I found this. She slid the drive across my desk. "What's on it?" "Videos, audio, proof of everything Victor's been doing, but also," she faltered, "proof that he's been framing me from the start, making it look like I'm the one in charge." My mouth went dry. "What kind of videos?" "Security footage from the basement, conversations between Victor and his partners, financial records showing money moving through accounts I didn't know existed, all in my name." She leaned forward, her voice urgent. "He's been planning this for years. If anything goes wrong, I'm the one who takes the blame. He has recordings of me handling cash, signing papers, meeting people I thought were bistro vendors but were actually—" She couldn't finish. I stared at the USB drive like it was a live grenade. "Mrs. Langley, what exactly is your husband's operation?" She was silent so long I thought she wouldn't answer. "Human trafficking," she whispered. "He's using the bistros as a cover. The basement of the main location is where they hold people before moving them." My face went numb. This wasn't just a divorce case. It was a federal crime, multiple federal crimes. "And you were involved?" "I thought it was money laundering," she said, panicked. "He told me we were skimming profits to dodge taxes. I handled what I thought were vendor payments and staff bonuses. I didn't know the truth until I saw those photos." She pointed to the envelope. "When I confronted him, he showed me footage of myself handling money, meeting his contacts, signing documents. He said if I ever tried to leave or expose him, he'd turn it all over to the FBI, claiming I was running the show while he was just a clueless restaurateur manipulated by his wife." I leaned back, my mind racing. If she was telling the truth, she was either a victim of a meticulous setup or an accomplice trying to downplay her role before the law caught up. Why come to me for a divorce? If you have evidence of his crimes, why not go straight to the police? Because I need immunity first, she said. I need to protect myself before I can protect anyone else. That's why I need the divorce, to legally distance myself from his assets and his crimes before I turn him in. She pulled another document from her bag. I've already contacted the FBI. Agent Monica Vance is handling the case. She said if I deliver Victor and provide evidence of his entire operation, they'll consider immunity for my cooperation. My heart pounded. This was so far beyond my expertise, it was almost laughable. Mrs. Langley, you need a criminal defense attorney. This is. I have one, she cut in. Nathaniel Cross, he's the one who suggested I file for divorce first to safeguard any legitimate assets. He said I need a family law attorney to handle the civil side while he deals with the criminal case. I knew Nate Cross. He was one of the top criminal defense attorneys in the state and one of the priciest. If Cassandra could afford him, she had serious resources. What exactly do you want me to do? File for divorce on grounds of irreconcilable differences. Keep it simple and quick. Meanwhile, I'll work with the FBI to build their case against Victor. When they arrest him, I want to be legally separated from his assets so I can't be tied to the financial side of his operation. It sounded plausible, but something felt wrong. Mrs. Langley, if your husband has been framing you for years, won't filing for divorce alert him that you're planning something? Her face darkened. That's the problem. He already knows. My stomach sank. What do you mean? He found out about the private investigator and knows I've been copying his files. Yesterday, he told me that if any divorce papers are filed, he'll immediately release all the evidence he has against me to the authorities. Then, why are you here? She looked me in the eye. Because yesterday wasn't the first time he threatened me. 3 months ago, when I started questioning his late nights, he pinned me against the wall and told me what would happen if I ever crossed him. She tugged down her scarf, revealing faint bruises. That's when I decided I'd rather face prison than stay married to him. But then I realized there might be another way. Which is, he dies. The words hung in the air like poison. Mrs. Langley, I think you should leave my office now. Wait, she said quickly. I'm not talking about killing him. I'm talking about the fact that Victor has pancreatic cancer. I blinked, thrown by the revelation. What? He was diagnosed 5 months ago, stage 4. The doctors gave him 6 to 9 months, but he's refusing treatment. He says he won't spend his final days in agony. My mind reeled, trying to process this. So you're planning to wait for him to die naturally? I'm planning to survive long enough for him to die naturally, she corrected. But I need legal protection in case he tries to ruin me before the cancer takes him. She leaned forward. Here's what I think happened. Victor knew he was sick before the official diagnosis. That's why he intensified his efforts to frame me over the past year. He plans to confess everything to the authorities, pin it all on me, and die before he can be prosecuted. That way, his family keeps the legitimate bistro business, and I rot in prison. The pieces were falling into place in a chilling way. But if I'm already divorced and cooperating with the FBI, his plan unravels. The evidence he has against me loses weight if I'm the one who came forward first. Mrs. Langley, this is incredibly risky. If your husband is as cunning as you say, filing for divorce could push him to act faster. I know, she said softly, but I'd rather take that risk than wait for him to decide when to destroy me. I stared at the USB drive. What's your timeline with the FBI? Agent Vance wants to move within 2 weeks. They've been investigating Victor's operation for 9 months, but they needed an insider. I'm their best chance at getting the evidence for a conviction. And your husband doesn't know you're working with the FBI? Not yet, but he knows I've been digging. It's only a matter of time before he realizes I've gone to the authorities. I stood and walked to my window, staring at the rain-drenched street. In 15 years, I'd never been asked to handle a case where my client was simultaneously a potential victim, a potential criminal, and a potential informant. Mrs. Langley, I need to ask directly, how much of your husband's operation did you genuinely not know about? She was silent for a long time. More than I should have, she admitted. Less than he thinks. What does that mean? It means I knew something was off with the money. Bistro profits don't swing like that. I knew people were coming and going from the main location at strange hours. I knew Victor was meeting with people who didn't look like suppliers. She paused. But I told myself it was just money laundering, maybe drugs. I never imagined it was people. When did did you first suspect it wasn't just financial crimes? 2 months ago, I was at the main bistro late doing inventory when I heard voices from the basement. I went down and saw Victor talking to a man I didn't recognize. They were standing by a door I'd never noticed, hidden behind crates. She shuddered. I heard sobbing behind that door. When I asked Victor about it later, he said it was a homeless person he was helping before calling social services. But you didn't believe him. I wanted to. I desperately wanted to, but the sobbing sounded like a child. The room felt suffocating. That's when I hired the investigator. That's when I learned the truth. She gestured to the photos. Those doors lead to rooms where they hold people before moving them. The sobbing I heard was a girl, maybe 15. I felt ill. Mrs. Langley, if you knew there were victims, why didn't you? Because I was terrified, she said, tears falling again. Because Victor had already shown me enough evidence to convince me I'd go to prison too. Because I was a coward who cared more about saving myself than saving those people. She wiped her eyes. But I can't live with it anymore. That's why I contacted the FBI. That's why I'm willing to risk everything to stop him. I returned to my desk, my thoughts in chaos. What exactly do you want in the divorce filing? Claim abuse and request immediate asset separation. Argue I had no knowledge of my husband's business dealings and need protection from potential financial liability. That'll be tough to argue if you've been handling books for his operation. That's where this comes in, she said, tapping the USB drive. It has proof Victor coerced me, recordings of him threatening me, documents showing he tricked me into signing things I didn't understand. And the FBI has seen this. Agent Vance has copies of everything. She's confident it's enough to show I was manipulated. I picked up the USB drive, feeling its weight. Mrs. Langley, I have to be honest. This case could ruin my practice. If it comes out I knew about federal crimes and didn't report them, I could lose my license. I understand, she said, but I know you've built your career on helping women escape toxic marriages. This is the most toxic marriage you'll ever see. She was right. I'd handled cases of abuse, hidden wealth, financial crimes, but nothing like this. I need time to think, I said. I don't have time, she replied urgently. Agent Vance wants to move on Victor next Friday. That gives us 1 week to file for divorce and establish my separation from his assets. Why the rush? Because they have intel that Victor is planning to relocate his operation. If they don't act next week, the victims will be gone and the evidence will vanish. My hands trembled as I set the USB drive down. Mrs. Langley, what happens if I say no? Then I find another attorney and you never see me again. But those people in Victor's basement don't get rescued next Friday. Her words hit like a punch. And if I say yes, then you help save lives and put a monster behind bars. I looked at the photos again, focusing on the details I'd avoided. The makeshift cells, the heavy locks, the signs of human suffering. How many people are we talking about? Agent Vance estimates at least 15 are being held at the main location. But the financial records suggest dozens over the past 3 years. Dozens of lives. Dozens of people treated like commodities while I handled routine divorces. Mrs. Langley, one more question and I need the truth. Are you truly remorseful about your involvement, or are you just trying to save yourself? She looked at me for a long moment, then pulled a small photo from her purse and placed it on my desk. It showed a young girl, maybe 14, with dark eyes full of fear. Her name is Sophia, Cassandra said quietly. She's been in that basement for 3 months. Every night I go to bed knowing she's there. Every morning I wake up knowing I could save her but haven't. She met my gaze. I'm not a good person. I was part of something horrific, but I'm trying to make it right even if it destroys me. I stared at the photo, then the USB drive, then the woman who was asking me to risk everything to help her atone for the unthinkable. If I take this case, you follow my instructions exactly. No more secrets. If there's anything else you haven't told me, say it now. She nodded. There's one more thing. Of course there was. What? Victor isn't working alone. He has partners, powerful people. Who? I don't know all of them, but one is Judge Malcolm Sterling. My blood froze. Judge Sterling was a revered figure, a 25-year veteran of the bench known for his tough stance on trafficking cases. How do you know? I've seen him at the bistro after hours, and I've seen payments to his brother's consulting firm in Victor's books. I put my head in my hands. This was spiraling out of control. Mrs. Langley, if Judge Sterling is involved, this is bigger than your husband's operation. I know. That's why Agent Vance is so invested in my cooperation. They think this could be part of a larger network. I paced to the window again. The rain had eased, but the sky remained ominous. If I take this case and Judge Sterling finds out, he could ruin us both. If you don't take it, he'll keep ruining innocent lives. She was right, and I knew it. I turned to face her. I'll take the case, but we do it my way. If anything goes wrong, you're on your own. Relief washed over her face. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me yet. We might both end up in prison. I locked the USB drive in my safe. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow morning. Emergency petition citing abuse and requesting immediate asset protection. Are you ready for your husband's reaction? I'm staying at a safe house under a false name. Agent Vance has a security team watching me. Good, because once these papers are served, there's no turning back. She gathered her things and headed for the door. "Mrs. Langley," I called. "That girl, Sophia, do you really think we can save her?" She turned, tears in her eyes. "I have to believe we can, because if we can't, I don't know how I'll live with myself." After she left, I sat alone, staring at the rain-streaked window, wondering what I'd just stepped into. In 15 years, I'd never taken a case that could either deliver justice or get everyone involved killed. I told my assistant to clear my schedule for the week, then opened my safe, took out the USB drive, and began the most perilous case of my career. The next morning, I arrived at the office at 5:30 a.m. to draft the divorce petition. I hadn't slept, my mind racing with all the ways this could implode. As I powered up my computer, my phone rang. "This is Agent Vance," the voice said curtly. "We need to meet. Mrs. Langley said you might call. Can you be at the federal building in 45 minutes? I glanced at my half-finished petition. "I'm working on Bring It with you. This can't wait." An hour later, I sat in a stark conference room with Agent Vance, a steely woman in her 50s who looked like she'd forgotten how to smile. "Cassandra Langley came to you yesterday," she said, skipping pleasantries. "Yes, she hired me to file for divorce. And she told you about our investigation. She did, though this is way outside my wheelhouse." Vance leaned forward. "Here's what she didn't tell you. We've been tracking Victor Langley for 20 months. We know about the trafficking. We know about Judge Sterling's involvement. What we didn't know until yesterday was that Cassandra has detailed records of everything." She slid a folder across the table. "These are bank records for accounts we didn't know existed. Transaction logs tracing money back to the source, names, dates, locations. Everything we need to take down not just Victor's operation, but the entire network." I opened the folder and my stomach dropped. The scale was staggering. How long has this been going on? At least 6 years, maybe more. We estimate they've trafficked over 250 people. 250 lives. The number was unfathomable. "Agent Vance, if you have this evidence, why do you need Cassandra's cooperation?" "Because having records isn't the same as using them in court. We need someone who can testify about the operation's inner workings, who was involved, where the money went. Cassandra's the only one with that knowledge who's willing to talk." "What about others involved?" "They either know too little or are too scared to speak. Victor doesn't trust many people. Cassandra's the only one with the full picture." Vance opened another folder. "This is why we need you to file that divorce petition today." The folder contained surveillance photos of Victor meeting with men I didn't recognize. "These were taken yesterday, 5 hours after Cassandra met with you. He's moving up his timeline." My heart raced. "What does that mean?" "He's planning to relocate the victims and destroy evidence. We think he knows Cassandra's gone to the authorities." "How could he know?" Vance's face hardened. "Because we suspect a leak in our investigation." The room spun. "A leak? Someone with access to our files is feeding information to the network. We don't know who, but Victor's actions suggest he knows we're closing in." I set the photos down, my hands shaking. "Agent Vance, if there's a leak, Cassandra's in danger." "We know. That's why we moved her to a safe house last night." "A safe house? She told me she was at a hotel." "She was, until we intercepted communications suggesting Victor was planning to have her killed." My face went pale. "Killed? The original plan was likely to frame her for the trafficking, then have her die before she could defend herself. But now that she's cooperating, he's skipping to elimination." I paced to the window, trying to process this. "Agent Vance, is Cassandra telling me the truth about her involvement, or is she more complicit than she claims?" "It's complicated." I turned to face her. "What does that mean?" "It means she was more involved than she first told us. But we have evidence Victor used sophisticated manipulation, gaslighting, isolation, threats. Classic tactics traffickers use to control victims." She pulled out a document. "Medical records from 4 years ago show Cassandra was hospitalized for a fall. The injuries suggest assault. The doctor said she seemed terrified and kept asking if her husband had been notified." "So she was a victim?" "A victim who became complicit. It's more common than you'd think. Traffickers often use one victim to control others, creating a dynamic where they feel responsible and trapped." I sat down, my head spinning. "Agent Vance, what do you need from me?" "File the divorce petition today. Make it public. When Victor's lawyers respond, they'll have to disclose financial information we can use. If Victor retaliates against Cassandra, we'll protect her, but we need that filing before he hides more evidence." I checked my watch. It was 8:45 am. I can file by noon. "Good. One more thing." "Of course." What? Include a request for a forensic audit of all marital assets. Make it comprehensive, every account, every property, everything they've ever touched. That'll raise alarms. That's the goal. When Victor's lawyers object, they'll have to justify why they don't want his finances scrutinized. That gives us grounds for a wider investigation. I nodded, feeling like a chess piece in a much larger game. Agent Vance, what happens to Cassandra after this? If she cooperates fully and testifies truthfully, we'll recommend immunity. She'll likely enter witness protection, but she'll be free. And if she doesn't, she'll spend life in prison. The weight of her words settled over me. I should get back to my office. One last thing, Vance said as I stood. Be careful who you discuss this with. We don't know who the leak is, but they have access to information only law enforcement or the courts would have. I drove back to my office, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles ached. By the time I parked, I decided to file the petition, trusting Agent Vance and the FBI knew what they were doing, and praying Cassandra was truthful about wanting to save those victims. But first, I had a call to make. Nathaniel Cross's office, his assistant answered. This is Lauren Carter. I need to speak to Nate about a mutual client. He's in court until this afternoon. Tell him it's about Cassandra Langley and it's urgent. 10 minutes later, Nate called back. Lauren, what's going on? Cassandra called me from a safe house saying the FBI moved her into protective custody. Nate, how much do you know about her situation? I know she's married to a trafficker and wants to cooperate with the feds. Why are you involved? I explained the divorce petition and Vance's request for a forensic audit. Good God, Lauren, do you realize what you're stepping into? I'm starting to. Nate, is Cassandra being honest about being coerced? From the evidence I've seen, yes. But coerced doesn't mean innocent. Participation is participation. What are her odds if this goes to trial? If she cooperates fully and the FBI gets convictions on the bigger players, decent. If she holds back or the investigation collapses, she's facing life. I closed my eyes, feeling the gravity of my choice. Nate, I'm filing in 2 hours. Anything else I need to know? Yeah, watch yourself. Victor Langley has deep pockets and deeper connections. If he sees you as a threat, you're at risk too. After hanging up, I stared at the petition on my screen. In 15 years, I'd never filed a document that could get someone killed. But I thought of Sophia's photo, the 250 victims Vance mentioned, and the countless others who'd suffer if this network wasn't stopped. I finished the petition, saved it, and drove to the courthouse. At 11:52 a.m., I filed Cassandra Langley versus Victor Langley for divorce, citing physical abuse and requesting immediate asset separation and a forensic audit of all marital property. By 12:20 p.m., I was back in my office when my assistant buzzed me. Miss Carter, a man's here about the Langley case. My blood ran cold. Did he give a name? He said he's a friend of Victor's. I glanced at my door, my phone, the window. For a moment, I considered calling Vance, but if Victor's people were already here, running would only worsen things. Send him in. The man who entered was not what I expected. In his 60s, impeccably dressed, with gray hair and an air of authority, he looked like a CEO, not a thug. Miss Carter, he said, closing the door. I'm Gregory Ellison. I'm here to discuss your filing on behalf of Cassandra Langley. I gestured to the chair, keeping my voice steady. I'm not sure what to discuss, Mr. Ellison. It's a standard divorce petition. He smiled, but it was cold. Nothing about this is standard, and we both know it. I don't follow. Miss Carter, I'll be blunt because I believe you're a smart woman who grasps the stakes. Cassandra Langley isn't the victim she claims. She's been running the trafficking operation for 2 years while Victor focused on growing the legitimate bistro business. My heart pounded, but I kept my face neutral. That's a serious claim, Mr. Ellison. It's not a claim, it's fact. We have extensive proof. He placed a tablet on my desk. Bank records showing Cassandra authorized payments to traffickers, videos of her negotiating with buyers, statements from victims naming her as their seller. I stared at the tablet without touching it. Mr. Ellison, even if that's true, it doesn't change my role. I've been hired to file for divorce. It changes everything, he said, tapping the screen. Your petition with its forensic audit request gives Cassandra access to records she can use to erase her crimes while framing innocence. Innocence like Victor. His smile grew colder. Victor Langley is many things, Miss Carter, but not a trafficker. He's a businessman who discovered his wife was using his bistros for a criminal enterprise. When he threatened to expose her, she decided to frame him. The ground seemed to shift beneath me. That's not what the FBI believes. The FBI believes Cassandra's carefully crafted narrative. She's fed them evidence painting her as a victim and Victor as a monster. He leaned back. The question is, will you help her deception or help us reveal the truth? I stared at him. Mr. Ellison, who do you represent? I represent justice, Miss Carter, and the innocent people being framed by a cunning sociopath. If you continue, when this investigation ends, Cassandra will vanish into witness protection while you face disbarment for aiding evidence destruction. He stood and headed for the door. Think carefully about whose story holds up, Miss Carter. Ask yourself why a woman who claims to have learned of this 6 months ago has such intimate knowledge of a criminal operation. After he left, I stared at the tablet he'd left behind. Everything I thought I knew about this case was now in doubt. I picked up my phone and called Agent Vance. "We need to meet," I said when she answered. "What happened?" "Someone claiming to represent Victor Langley just visited, and he's telling a very different story about who the real criminal is." By Friday, either Sophia would be free or we'd all be trapped with her. But first, I had to uncover the truth and decide whether I was helping save victims or destroy them.